Welcome back. With the heads of governments of nearly 50 countries present in Colombo for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the absence of India's Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh is being noticed, not just by the galaxy of world leaders, but more importantly by the hosts, Sri Lanka, even as Colombo remains tense at the possibility of a negative event that could mar Sri Lanka's coming out party.
Prime Minister Manmohan Singh cancelled his visit to Sri Lanka, succumbing to domestic pressures. That may have gained him a few friends among politicians in Tamil Nadu, but India's ties with Colombo may be affected. The move, say experts, has given China and Pakistan an opportunity to expand their base in the war-ravaged island nation, negating earlier attempts by India to keep Beijing and Islamabad's influence in check.
India has to engage Sri Lanka. It has no other option. And the Prime Minister's absence at the CHOGM would slightly leave a bitter taste in President Rajapaksa. Now, I don't think it will be taken lightly by him. So, it is going to be a little difficult to engage Sri Lanka.
India wants to have a say in the situation in Lanka, particularly relating to the Tamils. Delhi has persuaded the Rajapaksa government to uphold the 13th Amendment, which grants greater powers to local government. But the PM's absence from the Commonwealth meet only shows India's indecision, not the principled stand of a strong neighbour. This decision is evident during India's dealings with Bangladesh. In 2011, protests by Mamata Banerjee, now Chief Minister of West Bengal and then a UPA ally, ensured that India did not sign the Teesta Wars agreement with Dhaka. India let down Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who had agreed to a transit agreement between India and Bangladesh.
In the case of Bangladesh, I think that is, in a sense, a more serious matter, where clearly, with regard at least to the Teesta waters, the government was in a position to take a decision as the central government. It is unfortunate that the ruling establishment in India was unable to persuade the major political parties, including the BJP, in supporting a conclusion that was for the benefit of the people and certainly for good relations with Bangladesh.
Meanwhile, down south, as the situation in the Maldives gets murkier, India is caught in a bind. The danger of radicalism looms over the Maldives, but India, insisting on polls, prefers to play safe by not responding to deposed President Nasheed's call for interference. India lost some of its ability to exercise leverage over this island nation located in the midst of an important shipping route in the Indian Ocean.
Foreign governments, whether it is that of India or anyone else, have to learn to live with the government that people elect. It is likely that people will elect one person, and India has to be not only neutral but also seen to be neutral.
India's profile in its own neighborhood is shrinking rapidly. It is unable to influence neighboring countries. The question is, how long will India allow regional compulsions to trump foreign affairs?
While Dr. Manmohan Singh's government seems to focus more on Pakistan, Afghanistan and the United States, India's near neighborhood seems to have been ignored by New Delhi. And joining us now is Dr. C. Rajamohan from the Observer Research Foundation in New Delhi, the author of Crossing the Rubicon, The Shaping of India's New Foreign Policy. Dr. Rajamohan, my first question. It is not just India, but several other countries that remain strongly critical of Sri Lanka's recent human rights record. And while Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh has given in to local domestic pressures, others like Britain's David Cameron have chosen to go to Colombo and convey their people's objections. Do you believe that Dr. Singh has done the right thing by choosing to absent himself from the CHOGM Summit?
He's done absolutely the wrong thing by not going to Colombo for the Commonwealth Summit. I think the fact is, when it comes to dealing with the Tamil minority question in Sri Lanka, every government, this is not the first one, to face pressures from from Tamil Nadu in terms of how we deal with the situation. Now, I think the failure of this government has been twofold. One, it has not politically managed the dynamic in Tamil Nadu. It's not engaged them and told them, look, this is why we got to go, the reasons for going there, and the importance of engaging the Tamils of Sri Lanka. Second failure, I think, has been the Congress party's determination to put its electoral calculations above the national interest. Now, when we had better governments, more coherent governments in Delhi, on the political management side, and the rather narrow short-term calculus of the Congress party.
The Rajapaksa government in Sri Lanka is unlikely to forget this censor from New Delhi at a time when it was keen to showcase Sri Lanka. And there is also a view that the space created by India's absence would be taken up by China and others, which are always keen to benefit from India's diplomatic shortcomings, particularly in South Asia. What are your views?
See, China has already made considerable headway in Sri Lanka. And the more that India mishandles the situation in Sri Lanka, there will be greater opportunities for China to raise its profile. It's not just China, actually. It is Pakistan, for example, has been trying to gain ground in Sri Lanka for quite some time. There's speculation about Sri Lanka buying arms from Pakistan, not just guns and small stuff like that, but fighter aircraft. So I think we are the costs and consequences of mismanagement of our neighborhood policy are going to be pretty severe. And they're not just related to China, because you're needlessly losing support of critical constituencies in Sri Lanka and other neighboring countries. The other casualty, of course, is Commonwealth is an important forum. India is one of the largest countries there. So by not joining there, and there again, I think we are losing ground by showing that major summits are vulnerable to India's domestic pressures.
While Dr. Manmohan Singh has been keen to build bridges with Pakistan, a country built around anti-Indianism, by citing the need for engaging proactively with our neighbors, Dr. Singh's government appears to have made little use of the goodwill that existed in Sheikh Hasina's government in Bangladesh, or the influence that India has traditionally commanded in Nepal and the Maldives. How can India regain the necessary initiative and the space in its neighborhood in the next 5 years?
I think the blunders towards Bangladesh are far more tragic, far more consequential for India's foreign policy in the long term than the current problems with Sri Lanka. Because what we've seen is in Bangladesh, a leader who's willing to go all the way to address India's concerns. So this was a historic moment for the Manmohan Singh government to actually clinch the transformed relationship with Dhaka when he went there in September 2011. But once Mamata Banerjee created problems, I think the Congress party once again, I think, is the source of the problem. I mean, the Prime Minister would have happily signed those agreements. But I think once the Congress party calculates that, look, we can't take on Mamata Banerjee, we can't displease her. There again, I think the consideration is she's going to come to Parliament with 30 seats, what happens to the next government, and all those kind of calculations. I think the party's decision to put, again, future political considerations, narrow political considerations, at a very historic moment in the relationship with Bangladesh, once again, I think proves that the present dispensation, the political dispensation, has been utterly negligent of India's long-term interests.
Rarely in India's post-independence history has India's domestic politics had such a profound impact on India's foreign policy, particularly with that of its neighbors. And the absence of the Indian Prime Minister from the CHOGM Summit in Colombo would be a diplomatic damage that New Delhi would take years to repair. That's all in this episode of Latitude. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.